on our second day of our tour of the 7 churches of Revelation. Today we are here standing at the entrance of Laodicea, one of the 7 churches of the book of Revelation. But it's interesting that when you read the letter of Colossians, you find information about where we're at today. 10 miles to the north I have Hierapolis, and 6 miles from here I have Colossae. 2 main cities in which the book of Revelations is making a contrast in regards to its geographical location. It is important that when you study the Bible, you consider its cultural backgrounds, geographical information, and topography. In this case, we see that the revelation of John, that Yeshua gave to John, is actually speaking about the condition of the congregation and is connecting it with its geographical location and the contrast of their spiritual decay and what's going on in this church. Do we have evidence that the church was here once? Yes, we do. As we read in the book of Colossians chapter 4, verse 11, it says, "And Yeshua called Justus, they are my only workers in the kingdom of God, who are of the circumcision they have proved to be a comfort to me." Epaphras. That's a very important word here. It's the name of a person who actually had a congregation here. Epaphras, who is one of you, a bondservant of Messiah, greets you, always laboring fervently for you in prayers, that you may stand perfect and complete and in all will of God. And it says, "For I bear him witness that he has a great seal for you, those who are in Laodicea," right here, "and those in Hierapolis," north of here, where they have some thermal bath, one of the most important ones in Turkey. Very interesting. The contrast between the mountains, right in front of me, we have mountains with, snow all over them. And then we're going to have Hierapolis with thermal bath, warm waters, hot water. And now the contrast between the location of Laodicea, between those 2 bodies of water, talks about being lukewarm. Let me continue. And it says, "For I bear him witness that he has a great seal for you, and those who are in Laodicea, and those in Hierapolis." So now we have the evidence that there was a church here. "Greet and brethren who are in Laodicea, and Nymphas, and the church that is in his home." Now, it's really interesting because when I start studying the Bible, sometimes, like I said yesterday, we don't really put a location to what we're reading. But now here we are. We are in the street in which Paul would have come right through here, from east to west. You enter through this, and one of the main corridors of the ancient world in which every church is connected to its own roads. So you come through the entrance, you go through the exit all the way at the end, and here you go on your way to Ephesus, where we were yesterday. Let me continue reading. "And when this epistle is read among you," it's talking about the letter of Colossians, "see that is read also in the church of Laodiceans, and that you likewise read the epistle from Laodicea." Now, what's interesting is we don't have that letter anymore. Okay, we have Colossians, but we don't have the letter of the Laodiceans. But we know now that in this city where I am today, there were believers in Yeshua in the time of Paul, and then later in the time of John. So we know that John came through here. I think it's amazing how God in his wisdom establishes people in certain places in Asia Minor to convey the message of the gospel. By understanding its culture, understanding its setting, then we'll understand the message behind the message. Join me today, and we will learn more about the message of the city of Laodicea. The Laodicean city was roughly between 40 to 50,000 people. As we know here, this particular culture was saturated with idol worship, specifically the imperial cult. Now, the imperial cult is something that if we do not understand what it means, we will never really grasp the pressures that a person would have living in this town, because it has civic duties. Everything, political as well as religious, was connected as one. Therefore, if you served a god, even your job was connected with that god. Example, something that is called trade guilds. Trade guilds meant that if you had a job, they had a particular association of workers, but they had an allegiance to a particular god. They needed to serve that god, eat the meat sacrifices to idols to that god. They have to go to certain events based on the worship of that god, follow the myth of what that god represented. So therefore, if you had a job, if it was not just connected with having a job like today, without any religious attachments, back in the day, you have to show allegiance to the God of that trade guild. Therefore, if you lived here, you believe in Yeshua, now you got a problem. Because if you believe in the Messiah of Yeshua and represent his father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, now you have to make a decision of loyalty. You cannot worship the gods. You cannot eat their meat sacrificed to idols. You cannot do certain things. Therefore, now you cannot buy or sell. Interesting. Now we understand the context of the book of Revelation, in which now the people in this particular location, in the midst of the whole merchandising, behind me you have the mountains, snow caps, of what would be Colossians, where the water was cold. In the north, you're going to see Hierapolis, where you have the thermal bath. Then the strategic geographical location. It tells us the condition of the church, in which now, when the waters get here, the theory is maybe warm, lukewarm. But it's interesting that there was also a particular ritual or custom. It's called symposia. Symposia was actually a type of a meal that the rich or the people, the elite, would get together. They would incline and they have a meal. Except that this meal was connected with idolatry, debauchery, sexual sins, and many other things that a believer in Yeshua could not really do, partake of that. So therefore now I believe that the strategic location in topography and geography, plus some of the customs in which they will use either cold water or hot water, or cold wine or warm hot wine as a delicacy. But if you made it warm, they will use it as a way for you to throw up. So you will continue to eat the food that they have for you. All of this is culturally based, and the gospel is trying to let you know of the condition of the church in this place was connected with the whole decisions they needed to make on their everyday life. If you belong to a trade guild, now you got a problem. You're loyal to the Roman emperor. You're loyal to the God. You have to eat their food. So therefore, God is no longer your patron. The emperor is. That's the decision we make every day. Are we going to be loyal to God no matter where we're at? Regardless, are you going to mix the holy and profane? Are you become warm, lukewarm? He will vomit us out of his mouth. Meaning that he doesn't want compromise. He wants us to be loyal and be faithful to him forever. Just to get an idea about the pressures of living here in the time of the Bible. There was something called trade guilds. Let me expand a little bit more on that. Trade guilds was associations that you needed to have that if you had a job, you have to belong to. It gave you civic duty, it gave you civic identity, it gave you honor. Because if you have a particular job, then you become part of that community, and they had parties, and they had worship of a god, and they had imperial cult, some kind of worship of another god. Now, if you're a believer in Yeshua and you lived here, not only in this main street, you have to be challenged by all the worship of the gods and the temples that you see behind me. But also, there's something called symposium. And I want to read it to you because I think it's imperative that we understand these things. The symposium. Now, remember that the Bible says in the book of Revelation, either be hot or cold. Do not be lukewarm. Now, right in front of me, looking north, some beautiful mountain caps, snow caps, mountains. Right behind me, we will be headed towards a place in which they have the thermal bath. Very known, very well known. Now, we're smack in the middle. 10 miles to one place, 6 miles to the other place. You have Colosso, and then you have Hierapolis. We are in Laodicea right now. Now, what we must understand that this place was very well known for its merchandising, for wealth, because of its strategic location on the map and on the street. That if you look there to your left that way, you see the exit towards, it will be the west, and here to my left it will be to the east. Therefore, you will be able to have an artery of transport. So every type of merchandising will come from Ephesus, from the west, going towards a different location, have to come through here. So this was a very strategic location for a businessman to be. But more so, if you lived here, you have to make decisions daily. And if you had a job and you belong to a trade guild, okay, you have to make decisions. Let me show you one of the things they used to practice here among the elites. I'm not saying that everyone in the trade guilds will do this, although they were connected with the imperial cult and they were connected with games. They were connected with many of the things that will made you, give you some civic duty and civic identity within the groups. Therefore, if you did not belong to any one of those groups, then you didn't have the same benefits or the same privileges that everyone else did. So let's say that you did not want to worship the God of the trade guild or the group of people in the job, 100 people, let's say. You have 40 to 50,000 people in this place, in this city. Let's say that you have a job that has 100 people, and those 100 people belong to a trade guild. Now, the whole civic duty and identity is based on that, and they have to worship one of the gods. Let's pretend they're worshiping the God of the temple behind me, which had games, it had rituals, it had myth, it had sacrifice, meat to them, to the gods. And you believe in Yeshua. What are you going to do? You cannot do that now. So now you don't have a job. Now you cannot buy. Now you cannot sell. Now you have no honor. Among the elites, something else also happened. It's called a symposium. It's called a drinking party. I believe it. I really truly believe that the context of what we're talking about here, about being hot or cold and being lukewarm, contrasting the topography and geography, it also has to do with the culture and the custom held in the Greco-Roman world. Symposium was not only taking place, it's a type of meal, except that in the Greco-Roman world, let me read to you, according to Strabo and some of this, the particular historians, what symposium was all about. It says this: the symposium is an organization of all male groups, aristocratic and egalitarian at the same time, which affirm their identity through ceremonialized drinking. It's a drinking party, right? Prolonged drinking is separate from the meal proper. There is a mixed wine in a crater, it's called crater, for equal distribution. It's like a keg, okay? It says the participants adorned with like a crown lie on couches. That tells you their status. You only incline if you have money, or if you're free, okay? The symposium has private political and cultural dimensions. It is the place of good cheer, euphoria, of music, poetry, and other forms of entertainment. It is bound, listen to this, it is bound up with sexuality, especially homosexuality. It guarantees the social control of the city, the police, by the aristocrats. It is a dominating social form in Greek civilization from Homer onward, and is well beyond Hellenistic period. That's what they were dealing with all the time. Not only the pressures of mixing with the trade guilds, but also the pressures of if we have status like they did. Okay, some of the people did, like the elite. Now they have to participate in certain drinking parties. Maybe that's why Paul, as a Roman citizen, said, all is permissible, but not all is beneficial. I'm paraphrasing, because he was a Roman citizen. He was free to partake in a lot of these things. I think that when we consider studying the Bible from its cultural background, all of a sudden I'm here in a place that I never thought I would travel to. And for the first time in my life, I finally understand really the message behind the message. Ourselves in one of the main distribution centers for water. As you know, water was a sign of status in the ancient Near East, as well as in the Greco-Roman world. You already know that if you have water, or you have a distribution center or pipes or any kind of ability to have water available to you right outside your door, you have status as a city. As a matter of fact, that was one of the ways that when a new emperor came into power, he would actually give you evangelion, the good news. He did acts of righteousness. He would give you running water, he'd give you latrines, he would give you temples, a road, and facilities that normally you would not obtain, because he was your patron and he can facilitate things that normally you would not get. What you have behind me is actually one of the things that made this city so important. As a matter of fact, it's connected with the book of Revelation in regards to lukewarm. When it will come from Denisli, I can't pronounce that word, Denisli. Denisli is a city over here, and they also have a spring. The water comes from Denisli here, right behind the camera, where the mountain caps, you have the snow caps up there, and then it goes all the way to the city of Laodicea here, and then you have this was one of the distribution centers for water in the whole city. It's interesting because we were walking through the city, we saw clay pipes running throughout the city, and wow, that was, in that time frame, that was one of the most, amazing things that you can have, to have running water through your city. And it's interesting because by the time the water will come from the Nisli or on the spring, here it was lukewarm. So now, as I said earlier, the message in the book of Revelation is utilizing the geography and the topography to send a message that has to do with their condition, like I mentioned earlier, or the spiritual condition they had here. So to me, I came here, and one of the reasons why I came to the city is to actually look for this, because this really explains what the book of Revelations is speaking about. It's talking about the water distribution, and when you see these are pipes, all these are pipes. I don't know how they will work, all the pressure. These are clay pipes coming all throughout the whole thing. In my opinion, this is a construction marvel, the way they would do that. How they pressure, they have to have, in this map you will see it, it's actually a water distribution terminal. It's called Castellum Aqua, very important. And let me read it so you get an idea. It says, the water distribution terminal 1, it's only one, it's a few in the city, Castellum Aqua is located at an altitude of 279 meters to the east of the stadium, which is over there. So we have it's interesting how it works. We have the bath right over there. We have the stadiums on that side, and we have the water distribution. If you have the gymnasium, what you would do is you have hot bath, you have cold, and then you have saunas. Then you also have exercises. It was actually a way of doing things politically, business. It was the meeting place. So if you read the Bible and you understand about circumcision and uncircumcised, and then you read about the Greco-Roman world and what they felt about circumcision. The Greco-Roman world, they perceived circumcision to be an immoral thing to have. Now, what's interesting is, why would that matter? If you want to be part of the civic order, and you want to be part of the community, you have to have business with people of status. And if you have circumcision, they will consider you immoral. So why would that matter in the case of what we're talking about? If you have the bath, you have to go in. You expose your circumcision because everyone was naked. All the men were naked. So therefore, there was a surgical procedure, epispasm, of undoing the circumcision, reversal, okay, of the circumcision. That had to hurt, clearly. But they would do that. Now I understand why the Hellenized Jews would do that. I'm not justifying it, but what I'm saying is understanding the pressures of the city, understanding everything that's happening here, and the civic duties that they had, and symposium, which is basically drinking banquets, and then how the prosperity of the city based on their merchandising of the black wool that they always merchandise. It was high level of the black wool. Now I understand why many of the Hellenized Jews wanted to be part of the civic community and have their honor to gain more money and more status, rejecting the sign of the covenant because of the bath, okay? So here what you have is a line, a water line. It's like arches, like the Roman arches, that you have the aqueducts that will come from the Nisli and the spring there that will bring the water to this place. And this is the Castellum Aqua, which is the distribution center, in which by the time they got the water here, it was lukewarm. Now we understand the context from a historical, archaeological, and topographical perspective.